Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're watching Greenwave TV, alternative media television. This is AMTV Live. Having kind of a breaking news day today. We just put out a video. I just put out a video a few moments ago. Today's our first real day in the new studio. So we kind of have everything makeshift set up. We still have to build out kind of the control room. We're still lacking equipment. All the things that are needed to put all that stuff together. So we're very excited to be here, and also very, very focused on what's happening around the world, but specifically what's happening here in the United States. Now, Snowden has since gone missing. This is the big story over the weekend. This is the big story today. Pictures and images of Vladimir Putin, says Russia defiant, USA raises pressure. I want to welcome everybody to the live program. I see that the room is filling up. I'll be going to some comments and questions here today. We'll be running for the next hour. According to Reuters, the United States on Monday increased pressure on Russia to hand over Edward Snowden, the American charged with disclosing secret U.S. surveillance programs. Instead, it believed he was still in Moscow despite early reports he was leaving for Cuba. So the whereabouts of Snowden, it's kind of like, where in the world is Edward Snowden? Where is he? It says until recently, a contractor with the U.S. National Security Agency, the NSA, remained a mystery. He had flown to Moscow after being allowed to leave Hong Kong on Sunday, despite Washington asking the Chinese territory to detain him pending his possible extradition on espionage charges. White House spokesman Jay Carney, many of you are familiar with him. Jay must honestly be irritated at this point representing President Barack Obama. I mean, imagine and think about all the trial and tribulation Jay Carney has been through, trying to smooth over from a public relations PR perspective Obama's wrongdoing. I mean, the list goes on and on. Too many to count. We talk about it here in the office. I talk about it with Topher. I talk about it with friends and family. There are so many scandals involving this Obama administration that I've lost count. I don't have enough fingers and toes to list them all. And here we have a Democratic Party geared up in position to take the throne, more like crown themselves, as President Barack Obama has done in 2016 with Hillary Rodham Clinton. So what we have, folks, what we have is we have Edward Snowden gone missing. Reports are he's seeking asylum, much like Julian Assange of WikiLeaks had sought asylum in Ecuador. And I want you to think about that for a minute. I want you to specifically think about what that means. Specifically, the fact that whistleblowers and truth seekers, those that are breaking news and information that really matters, not just the teleprompter readers at Fox News or CNN or CNBC, are having to leave the supposed free United States and move overseas to Ecuador. That's where it's more free. You're better off in Ecuador, and these people are better off in Ecuador than they are the United States of America. And that is a very important, striking point that we need to share among those of us interested in things like liberty and freedom here in the United States, because we clearly do not have it. So what we have is we have Snowden missing, seeking asylum. We have other people like Michael Hastings, dead, gone dead, multiple theories, multiple conspiracy theories around his death, which very much looks like a hit and run type scenario. We've got two videos that we'll be cutting, we'll be posting after this live broadcast. An AMTV news report. I posted a second video as well, digging into Hastings, and we're looking specifically of the timeline, you know, what led up to his death, the last stories that he was working on, which to me really is the question mark. What story was Hastings onto? What story was Hastings about to break? Now remember, he's famous, and he was famous for breaking and writing the op-ed in Rolling Stone magazine that ruined General McChrystal. And once General McChrystal fell, and keep in mind, that scandal was about General McChrystal basically putting the Obama administration in a bad light, making comments that were inflammatory of the administration, Obama calls McChrystal in, fired him on the spot. This is what this guy, this 33-year-old Hastings, was responsible for. And this is really interesting. It's very interesting how this was connected. Hastings, who helped engineer, or really just report the truth, the fall of McChrystal. McChrystal was then later replaced by General Petraeus, who was more recently emblazoned in another scandal involving Jill Kelly and another temptress in the war and feuding of these women, which to me, I believe Petraeus was set up as a fall guy by Obama and by the president to basically take the heat for what has unfolded in Benghazi. With Christopher Stevens, CIA liaison, this is now well documented. Before it was speculation, this is now fact. Running guns outside of Libya, into Syria, arming Syrian insurgents, arming Al-Qaeda. This is all a part of the destabilization mechanism and campaign in the Middle East. Kill Muammar Gaddafi, oust Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, who is now living on a warship, and continue rinse and repeat. This is what we have. Very interesting story by Hastings himself, and again, many conspiracy theories and many great comments and tips have been sent into our tips line, tips@amtvmedia.com. Please send us anything you've got. We'll take a look at it. We'll vet it. We'll get the truth out if it in fact is the truth. But questions that I've heard people talk about are, was it a drone strike? Could the vehicle, the Mercedes, the C-Class, white coupe, could it have been hit by a drone? Now, remember, through the NDAA and the National Defense Authorization Act, this is all now legal. We could be drone striked right now as I deliver this broadcast. You could be drone striked at your home, at will, if President Barack Obama deemed it necessary, calls you a terrorist. Really, you're just a liberty lover, activist, love freedom, Bill of Rights, Constitution, pro-gun, Second Amendment, that sort of thing. But that is the type of police state that we live in today here in the good old USSA. So that's one of the question marks. Could it have been a drone strike? In addition to that, there's been speculation that maybe it was a preset bomb. In the olden days, they actually had to put a bomb underneath your car. They had to wire it together. They had to be within a certain distance of you to set it off. I mean, this is very Godfather-esque. This is very much, the Don calls in the hit. Those of you familiar with the Godfather trilogy. Personally, I love both of them. I thought Godfather 1 and 2 are pretty much neck and neck. 2 might have been better. The third Godfather, so-so. So was it a drone strike? Could it have been a preset bomb? Could he possibly faked his own death? Now remember, via an email, and I'll read this to you, and we reported on this earlier. Many of you have seen this. He says this is an email he sends out to colleagues. He sends out to friends. He sends out to another friend of his who knew him in Afghanistan. Said, hey, the feds are interviewing my close friends and associates. Perhaps if the authorities arrive, BuzzFeed GQ, their headquarters, may be wise to immediately request legal counsel before any conversations or interviews about our news gathering practices or related journalism issues. And then he says in quotation marks, also, I'm on to a big story and need to go off the radar for a bit. I am on to a big story and need to go off the radar for a bit. This to me almost sounds like a movie. Going off the radar, knows he's being tracked, knows he's being followed. There was also, and this is a confirmed report, that he had contacted the WikiLeaks attorney to seek legal counsel because he knew the heat was on him. Now, we also know, and I mentioned this in our previous video, that Mercedes actually has the preeminent technology regarding self-driving cars. Google's ability to drive your car through Bluetooth, through these mechanisms, through OnStar, the OnStar system that Mercedes has in their C-Class vehicles, can actually take control, much like they take control of a drone. They do this all day long overseas in the Middle East and places like Pakistan and Yemen. They now have the ability to do this regarding your vehicles. People think it's such a great thing. People are so enamored, so excited. The cars will be able to drive themselves. You won't have to think for yourself. You'll just do a Google search over your retina with Google Glass. It'll tell you what you want. It'll tell you what to buy. It'll market services and advertisements to you. But they never think about the sinister use of that technology itself, how it can be used against you. Think about these data mining facilities in general. In places like Colorado, these multi-billion-dollar facilities that data mine all of your personal information and data. They have your text messages, they have your voicemail, they have your phone calls, they have your audio recordings, they have your GPS coordinates, they know where you're checking in via Facebook, etc. And I talk about this all the time. People think people like me are vulnerable to this sort of thing, when you are actually just as vulnerable as those of us that are in the limelight, quote unquote. They're actually in the business of truth-telling, or in the business of investigative journalism. So this is absolutely incredible. And what does this say about a country that has such little freedom that when you break the truth, you either end up like Bradley Manning, and as in a report that Hastings had written right before he was killed, he says the attitude the Obama administration has toward Manning is revealing. What do they think of him? What do they think of them? And in quotations, he wrote, F. Bradley Manning. F. Bradley Manning is what this high official, as one White House official told it to Hastings. This was Hastings' one of his last reports that he had written, titled, Why Democrats Love to Spy on Americans. You can look this up for yourself. I encourage you to read it. I also encourage you to read the Rolling Stone article that made him famous on General McChrystal, because it's a telltale sign and also provides an indication of what the Obama administration very well was fearful of, what they thought was about to break, what a fearless journalist, only 33 years old, had just recently been married, had a wife at home, lost his previous love overseas in the wars in the Middle East. He wrote a memoir about it. In fact, it was a New York Times bestseller. What could have the Obama administration been afraid of? What was he about to break? What was he on to that he felt passionately enough and he felt motivated enough to send an email that he blind carbon copied to most of his friends and colleagues that says, I'm on to a big story and need to go off the radar for a bit. Also, in regards to the fiery inferno car crash, and many of you have seen images of this, a total inferno. This Mercedes, just literally a 10-foot plus fire blaze. The body was so badly burned that they had to check the dental records to identify Hastings as the victim of this crash. What if he was even in the vehicle? If this wasn't somehow a faked death? Who knows? Maybe he's been black bagged overseas and they've sent him over to Guantanamo Bay or Gitmo. That's the kind of power that this government has. So a lot of unanswered questions. Also, the engine blew out. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but the engine blew out of the Mercedes itself, which from a lot of people I've talked to is very uncharacteristic of those cars. It's one of the reasons people suspect as another possibility it could have been some kind of explosion that got to the vehicle itself. So what does this all mean, and how is this story developing within the mainstream media and the alternative media? You've got Catch Me If You Can, Snowden. Catch Me If You Can, Snowden. Where is Edward Snowden? He's a step ahead of the U.S. government, eludes arrest. Let me take you here to the screen share so you can see this. Here we go to the screen share. Edward Snowden, a step ahead of the U.S. government, eludes arrest. The 30-year-old NSA leaker manages to make Washington seem stumped as he slips out of Hong Kong and lands in Russia, apparently planning to end up in Ecuador. This is the same country that Julian Assange has been seeking asylum. The hunt for Edward Snowden stretched around the globe Sunday as the 30-year-old leaker of U.S. classified material flew out of Hong Kong under cover of darkness, dropped into the protective embrace of Russia, and made plans to hopscotch through Cuba and Venezuela to eventual asylum in Ecuador. His stealthy movements, aided by the anti-secrecy WikiLeaks organization and its high-powered lawyers, played out like an international game of Where's Waldo. The American citizen, many calling a traitor, and a folk hero to others, kept a step ahead of his government, which has charged him with violating the Espionage Act and revoked his U.S. passport in an effort to bring him to ground. Here's an image here. You can see me highlighting. Here's an image of Bradley Manning. And in a recent report, I just read this to you, Hastings, from a high-up Washington White House official, had told Hastings, F. Bradley Manning, when he asked what he thought of him. That's what the United States thinks of whistleblowers, leakers, truth seekers, those in the media that still believe in a free press, still believe in constitutional principles, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment that protects that freedom of speech and free press. So absolutely amazing. And again, the conspiracy theories abound on Hastings. What I want to know is, what was the story that he was about to break? What did he have his hands on? We're working on uncovering all of that live as we speak at 1:20 here in Phoenix, Arizona. I would also encourage you, you can just pull up some general information, although you always have to be wary what you pull up on Wikipedia, but you can pick up some general information on Hastings himself. It says he was born in 1980. He was just 33 years old, an American journalist, writer, and reporter for BuzzFeed. Rose to prominence with his coverage of the Iraq War for Newsweek, and also his article, his breaking piece in Rolling Stone. His fiancée had died in Iraq. He wrote the memoir, I Lost My Love in Baghdad. Maybe some of you have read that, a modern war story, which was published in 2008. His Rolling Stone profile of General Stanley McChrystal, commander of NATO's International Security Assistance Force in the Afghanistan War, documented the widespread contempt of the general and his staff for civilian officials in the U.S. government and resulted in the general's resignation. It goes on a little bit about his life and career. He was born in Malone, New York. He was the son of Doctors Molly and Brent Hastings, both that were generals. Regarding the interview itself, it says in June 2010, this is of General McChrystal at the time, Rolling Stone published The Runaway General, Hastings' profile of U.S. Army General Stanley McChrystal, then commander of NATO's International Security Assistance Force in the Afghanistan War. The article reported remarks by McChrystal's staff that were overtly critical and contemptuous of White House staff and other civilian officials. On June 22nd, the news of the forthcoming article reached the attention of the American print media and the White House. McChrystal immediately issued an extensive apology, and Duncan Boothby, the civilian contractor responsible for coordinating the article with Hastings, resigned. U.S. President Barack Obama summoned McChrystal to the White House on June 23rd and relieved him of his command. How convenient. How convenient that the president would relieve him of his command, much like he did with what I believe to be a staged fall guy scenario of General Petraeus. You know, the mainstream media deciding to unearth some kind of sexual liaison scandal between two bickering women, a fake socialite, Jill Kelly, out of Tampa Bay, Florida, who liked to mingle at these events, pretend she was a millionaire, even though that she wasn't, and the other woman who was writing a biography on General Petraeus at the time, and that Petraeus had a sexual relationship with, much like Bill Clinton had his sexual escapade with Monica Lewinsky. So what this is doing is opening the door to what is really happening and going on behind the scenes. And I want you to think about for a minute, if this is what we know is coming to light, if this is what we know is being shedded, and this is what we know the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, these data mining organizations are doing, this is what has been authenticated. Imagine what they're really doing. Imagine how sinister these campaigns are, these data mining campaigns are. You know, every time you download an app and it says, hey, yeah, can I use your onboard GPS location settings? You are giving this system, you are giving this surveillance state complete control over your life. Now, if you're one of the run-of-the-mill, sheeple and you're deeply ingrained taking your medication every day, maybe that doesn't matter to you. But if you're somebody independently thinking and self-aware of what's happening around you, what's happening around a deteriorating and a structurally insolvent economy, that should alarm you. That should make you pause for a minute. That should raise an eyebrow or two. You know, very interesting to follow the financial markets. I was speaking to a broker friend of mine earlier today. The market has been selling off the past few days. In fact, I'm looking at this right now. Let me screen share with you. Here we're at CNBC.com. You can see that the Dow Jones Industrial Average at 14,659, down 139 points. I believe it had sold off some 200 points earlier this morning. Ben Bernanke is indicating that he is putting his foot on the pedal. He is putting his foot on the pedal in terms of these buyback bond purchase programs, or rather he's releasing his foot from the pedal. And this is providing a lot of instability to Wall Street traders, namely the institutional investors and hedge funds that are dependent on this easy credit, that are dependent on 0% interest rates, much like the traditional consumer is. Of course, all of this tied to credit cards, mortgage rates, all forms of credit, all forms of assets that are leveraged that you have to borrow to pay for, impacts the entire U.S. economy. Remember, this is a country with almost $17 trillion and growing U.S. debt, which will never be paid back, which is an enormous feat that can never be met. Doesn't matter who the politician is, doesn't matter if it's left, right, Democrat, or Republican, we are finished here in America. What needs to happen is we need to set the reset button. A viable approach would be really what Peter Schiff has recommended, a restructuring of the debt itself. If you're broke and if you're bankrupt, simply what needs to be done is you need to restructure your situation, which is exactly what we need to do with the balance sheet here in the USA. I'm going to go see if I can view some of your comments here. Let me go back to YouTube. I've got to load this on a different browser, so I can go to these in a minute, see our direct live stream. We should have a link here somewhere at the top. Let me see, go here to embed, see if I can actually get the link. So while I'll do that, let's take a quick break. I'll be back in 5. Let me get that link. I'm going to go to your comments right after this quick intermission. Stay tuned, everybody. Everybody, we are back. I am Christopher Green. This is Greenwave TV, Alternative Media Television Live. It is approximately 1:29 here in Phoenix, Arizona. We're still working around to see how we can get to your comments. Not as easy to use the YouTube live stream as you might think. So as we locate that, bear with us. You know, it spoke a little bit about Hillary Rodham Clinton. You know, another idea and another conspiracy or possibility, more like a viability around Hastings and his death is, could it have been somehow intertwined, not just with Obama, his, presidential administration? Could it be somehow intertwined with the Clintons, the Clintonista clan? Hillary Clinton clearly looking to take the reins in 2016. Some reports I have even read suggesting that Hillary Clinton just paved the way for Chelsea's presidential campaign. And people think that these aren't kings and queens. Jeb Bush is running. The Bushes are running. The Clintons are running. Absolutely incredible. It says, welcome to the Hillary Rodham Clinton presidential speculation sweepstakes. Let me show you this. There's a super PAC to support her and one that's trying, at least in part, to stop her. Every word she utters is parsed by cable TV, blogs, and anyone with a political pulse for indications of which way she is leaning. And there are still 922 days between now and January 1st, 2016. Welcome to the Hillary Rodham Clinton presidential speculation sweepstakes, it says, a process that not only has begun earlier than it did before Clinton ran for president in 2008, but also is significantly more well-developed on both sides of the equation. This is a quote. It says, it did start earlier this time around, said Brian Wolf, a longtime senior aide to House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. You have the confidence of her being the anointed nominee and Obama supporters' overwhelming support for her. I'd like to know what you think about that. Also, please give us feedback around our live broadcast. Probably have to do a better job soundproofing, so let me know how the vocals are resonating. Hopefully that sounds pretty good. We'll make any adjustments that we need to our facility. We're working on the build-out of our live broadcast control room, so we'll be doing most of that today, in addition to cutting both AMTV News and the latest AMTV report by yours truly. I'm going to cut it a little short today. Expect 2 blazing videos coming your way in just a moment. Please get this live stream out to all your friends and family. If you're not subscribed to us on YouTube yet at CGreen34, please do. Join us at Facebook at Greenwave TV and follow me personally at Twitter at Greenwave. I'm Christopher Green, hard-hitting and in your face.